3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons introduced us to the iconic character. Somebody, when you saw them, you instantly knew what they represented. Officially it was for classes, but over the years, certain characters began to define certain settings. For Greyhawk it was Mordenkainen. Planescape had the Lady of Pain. Tanis Half-Elven was the face of Dragonlance. And for the Forgotten Realms, of course, had Alias from Curse of the Azure Bonds. But what about Mystara? We really didn't have anybody. Bargle was well known, but his appearance literally changed adventure to adventure. Then the series Voyage of the Princess Ark came out, and Bruce Hurd gave us our iconic character, Haldemar of Haaken. Dashing, daring, and more than a bit arrogant. He was pure Alphatian and 150% awesome. Welcome to Mystara. I'm Mr. Welch, and let's meet our favorite son. Haldemar officially was born in 1911 AY of the Alphatian calendar, or 911 AC in the Phaeacian calendar. He was born in Floating R, the son of powerful nobles, and demonstrated a talent for magic at an early age. He's not based on a historical character like many of Mystara's big names, but he was the inspiration for Isdilmir de Alberon in the Kalador setting, also by Bruce Hurd. Probably just a coincidence. He has the appearance of a pure-blooded Alphatian, with black hair, pale skin, and blue eyes. Like all pure-blooded Alphatians, his skin tone has a slight bluish tint. He was trained at the finest magical academies in Alphatia, and by his uncle, a renowned airship builder. For his 10th birthday, he was gifted with a magical sailboat, which gave him his love of flying and mischief. When he came of age, his parents gave him his first job, where he was taught the trade of an accountant and began looking after the family fortune. Being highly intelligent, he was a natural at the trade and successful at first. The problem started when Haldemar grew bored with his work. His family never took any risks. They were wealthy, but they were also content with the status quo. The impulsive Haldemar started taking on risky investments, specifically those of a speculative nature. One day Haldemar's luck ran out, and his family nearly lost everything when an investment turned sour. While they were able to recover, Haldemar was cast out into the world to make it for himself. He found employment aboard a flying casino, where he discovered his love of gambling. Fortunately for young Haldemar, it turned out that he had a natural talent for both games of skill and chance. He acquired a sizable fortune working at the casino, and continued his luck by winning the business from the owner in a game of chance. Once he owned the ship, he could take it to wherever he desired and became a common sight in the company of powerful nobles and courtiers. When Tilion IV offered him a commission in the Imperial Navy, Haldemar jumped at the chance. He sold his casino for a hefty profit, and was given a flying frigate as a commission. Then the Spike invasion started in 1959 AY. The invasion did not go in favor of the Alphatians, as anyone who follows this channel knows. The Alphatians reached as far as Thyatis City, where they were finally turned back by the now Emperor Thenkal. But Haldemar concentrated on other targets in Thyatis, winning several victories and acquiring another fortune in prize money and captured magic items. He retired from the Navy in 1961 AY, having reached the rank of Admiral and grown quite wealthy during his career. He returned to his family with his required riches, and they welcomed him back with open arms. One of the magical items Haldemar acquired during the war was an ancient Nithian scroll that contained a powerful spell that had remained unused since the time of that cursed empire. He spent some time deciphering it and learning its magics. He discovered the Thonian enchantment would bind the soul of a creature called a Skyworm to that of a ship. The downside was that it would also bind his soul to the ship. Always impulsive, he immediately cast the spell on his family's skyship, the Princess Ark. This caused one of the immortal dragons to send a servant, the greater Skyworm Berilith, to complete the spell. Berilith was promised increased status if she would serve Haldemar, but what this favor was never fully explained. She has her own agenda, but apparently it's closely tied to Haldemar's. Haldemar first appeared in Dragon Magazine 153 and was created by Bruce Hurd as a retcon to the Master Series map of Mystara. That map had large sections given to one nation or another, each far larger than anything in the known world, dwarfing even that of Thyatis and Alphatia. Haldemar, and Bruce I imagine, was having none of it. In a famous rant, at least among Mystara fans, Haldemar blasted the Imperial cartographer for laziness in compiling the then official map. The Emperor of Dorfin IV was a practical joke played by a gnome king. The Empire of the Great Khan is neither great nor ruled by a Khan. He also dismisses the lands of Vulcania, Tangor, Cestia, Brasil, and Zixel, and many others, as names made up by a Phaeacian explorer that couldn't be bothered to actually explore. Then he announced he would explore the world and find out who lived where. Some of those regions were retconned into smaller nations officially, but unless Haldemar went there, you can't trust the old map. Haldemar showed the results of his spell to Empress Ariadna, who was thrilled with what she had seen. She immediately rewarded Haldemar with a writ of endorsement, allowing him to act as her voice in foreign lands. She reinstated his commission in the Alphatian Navy, where he reassumed his rank of admiral. The writ gave him a financial incentive, as every nation he signs a treaty with earns him 1% of all the trade between Alphatia and their new partner. This made Haldemar one of the wealthiest men in Alphatia. in addition to his already considerable fortune from previous adventures. Haldemar created the Princess Ark from his family's ship, but after a lighthearted jaunt into the demiplane of nightmares, before Haldemar could complete the Thony enchantment, Berilith redesigned the ship. Both versions of the Princess Ark have the same magical power, though the rebuild is a much more impressive ship. Berilith has a telepathic link with Haldemar. He can give her commands, but she doesn't have to listen. She tells him where repairs are needed and also complains when people leave her dirty, or if she's overburdened. If Haldemar dies, Berilith is freed and returns to serve her Draconic master. If the Princess Ark is destroyed, both Haldemar and Berilith are killed. The ship itself now resembles no sailing vessel on the ocean. A magical outline of Berilith's true form surrounds the ship, though it can be rendered invisible at will. The entire ship is also enchanted to go completely invisible, which is useful when Haldemar hasn't made diplomatic contact with a nation yet. Berilith can look into any room, open doors and windows, and move parts of the ship around with a thought. She can only do this to a limited degree, as her attention can only be in one place at a time. If she is harmed, or if something like a fire breaks out, she will know immediately where, and Haldemar will also be informed at the same time. The most recognizable part of the Princess Ark is the command deck, which levitates above the rear deck and serves as a command center for Haldemar and the rest of the senior crew. The ship is armed with catapults, ballistae, and a cannon mounted at the front of the ship. The siege weapons have magical effects, and Berilith can channel her breath weapon through the cannon like it was a normal mouth. The cannon is powerful enough to blow a Haldonic warbird out of the sky, with enough damage left over to send a message to everyone else in the battle. I'm saving the grand tour of the ship and the crew introductions for later videos, but the ship has a crew of 101 sailors and can carry 16 tons, though carrying the full amount makes her one day older and deeper in debt. She can carry more cargo on deck if absolutely necessary, but she will complain the entire time until it's unloaded. While she isn't a dedicated voyage ship, she is capable of flight outside of Mystara's air shield. To do this is dangerous because the crew on deck will be exposed to the void of Mystara space. The officers have spells and magic items that can mitigate this, and Berilith can do much of the work on deck herself. She can't spend too much time in the void, but she has traveled to the moon of Miyashima. It's not recommended she go much further than that. For those curious about Mystara space, Champions has all the rules for it. Mystara void ships are superior to typical spelljamming ships, but far more complicated. You can make about a half dozen spelljammers for one dedicated void ship. They're several times the size of spelljammers, faster, but with a different navigation method. Somebody remind me to get some art done of an Illithid Nautiloid exchanging broadsides with a Rockholm ironclad. That battle would be the stuff of legend. As Mr. Tex would say, "Quick, we need to lighten the load. Send all the ammunition to the enemy ship." But that's for another video. But I'm writing it down right now. I promise. Haldemar's strengths are his intelligence, charm, and vast amount of skills he's trained in. He's a master diplomat. It doesn't matter if he's talking to cannibalistic elf-ogre hybrids, humanoid plant people, Belgian gnomes, samurai jungle space cats on the moon, or cocky miniature lizard men. He knows how to start up a conversation. He can negotiate a trade agreement with some degree of complexity thanks to his initial training as an accountant. While diplomatic incidents are unavoidable, he is capable of talking his way out of the most egregious ones. The nations and peoples he visits are just as curious about the Alphatians as he is about them. While he's highly skilled, well-versed in magical arts, and a veteran naval commander, he's not without flaws. He has the same impulsive streak that many Alphatians are known for. He will often jump at the chance to check out something that he finds interesting, rather than sending out scouts as other captains would. He will never pass up an opportunity to acquire new magic items or spells. That's the best way to lure him into a trap. He's a sucker for a pretty face, though his philandering days are waning. He's still considered one of the most eligible bachelors in Alphatia, though. If he's not out exploring Mystara, both inside and out, he's a ubiquitous sight at Empress Ariadne's court. He's one of her favorites, partly because of his charm and connections, but mostly because he's reliable. You don't get to act as emissary of Alphatia if the Empress doesn't trust your judgment. He does have to get her permission with every trip he takes, but that's more of a rubber stamp, as she has yet to deny him funds or permissions on any expedition. The lucrative trade deals he returns with are a major reason for this. That, and he discovered the Hollow World, as well as the Rakasta Empire on the moon above. A guy that pulls that off gets a lot of slack. While he has powerful allies, his list of enemies are some of the most powerful villains in the setting. He was the first to encounter Sin the Night Dragon, and she has been a thorn in his side for decades. While she's now shifted her attention to Glantry, they haven't forgotten about each other. However, Glantry isn't exactly a welcoming nation for an Alphatian admiral lately. Herr Rolf, leader of the Haldonic Order, is an old foe for Haldemar and a rather ungrateful one. After being saved from being Unjatwa-Chow, he envies Haldemar's power and wants the secret of the Thonian enchantment. Lastly, there's Prince Xandor, who is officially friends with Haldemar, but privately the two men despise each other. Haldemar thinks Xandar is a buffoon, and Xandar does not like the favor his mother gives the Admiral. Haldemar is a high-level wizard, and for higher-level characters, he's quite approachable. If you have the favor of Ariadne, she will make it a point to introduce you to it at some point. If you want to go the Star Trek route, then Haldemar can hire the characters as crew, and they can explore the undefined parts of Mystara. He's got a lot in common with Captain Kirk in that regard. He will want to lead the first party in any newly discovered region, no matter how dangerous it is. So don't wear red. Next week we're headed back to Eastern Skothar, where I'm forcing myself to finish talking about all of the extraordinary nations I mentioned there. The Technomancers of Zixel, the would-be heirs to Blackmore, until they got stupid and greedy. But until then, the next person I catch abandoning dogs on my street, I will stake out and leave for the county shelter to pick up like the animal they are. That is a promise.